Dr. RC. Okay, so this is going to be a new episode for the Big Push, I believe episode 3. And this one, we're going to talk about another 3 key items or key areas of your 24 from purchase to doing upgrades. Now, remember, the things that we're suggesting are things that we, as far as what we've done with our cars and the direction we've gone, and what we feel is kind of the first things to go on your 24. But you know, there are other options and other choices. So, and at the end of this series, we're actually doing a really cool special thing where we're gonna we're kind of setting it all up, put it together, but want to give you guys the option of seeing all the different options and different custom things people have done. And so I think that would be just kind of help out. I mean, that's the overall goal, is to help everybody kind of get to a certain level with these, where you either can you can choose to or choose not to do certain upgrades or do certain modifications, and getting inspired by other people's creations. So, I mean, that's why you watch YouTube, right? That's why we created YouTube, why we watch YouTube, is to be inspired by other people. So that's what we're doing. And so in this one, we're going to talk about, we're going to go into shocks, and then we're going to go into the front steering, or the steering link. And then we're also going to go into the overall linkage on the underneath part of your 24. It will be a little bit of a kind of a, we're going to kind of dive deep into certain things, certain areas, and then obviously other areas doesn't need quite as much extensive talking. So we're going to start off with the shocks. And one of the things about the shock, we're actually going to get a little closer there. So one of the things about the shock that it's kind of debatable, everybody's kind of has their own take. You can avoid not buying the shocks and sticking with the stock ones to save a little bit of money and just get different springs. The only downfall that you're going to have with that is that you got to remember, the springs are one level of control of your shock. The next level of the control of your shock is going to be the adjustability that you have on these upgraded metal shocks. You can see that I can fine tune my adjustment and put tension or release the tension on the spring. So that's the next step. The third one is going to be where you place your shock on your vehicle. So you can only, unfortunately, with the stock ones, you're only going to be able to cover 2 of those areas of your shock. So you have to kind of think about that. Do you really want it to dial in on its crawling ability, its driving ability, and its overall performance? You're going to want to go ahead and do the upgrade and get the metal shock, because not only are you going to adjust your spring based on whether it's a soft spring or a hard spring or even a medium spring, but then you get to fine tune that with your ability to adjust it. Now, there's a lot of different options for shocks. You don't have to go high end. These do not have oil. We avoid the oil just overall, but they do have ones now, I believe, that you can put oil in. The 24s are so small, the springs are really going to play a lot into it, where like a larger crawler, the springs are only going to do so much. You really need that soft and squish from what you get in the weighted oils. So with this, we'll zoom out a little bit. So you have different options to start off. You can, right away, we're not going to go into the branding of what shocks. These are the Treal, in case you want to know, and we'll have a link for them. But there are other options, racing, hot racing, and all those kind of things. So with this, like you can see in the front here, we actually have a soft spring, and it's quite soft. It's basically what you would get in your stock vehicle. The rear here, we actually have a stiffer spring. That's more considered the hard spring. You can actually see here, we have a couple of them out. With this setup, as you see right now, this is the front of the Jeep and this is the rear. Normally you would have that kind of setup in reverse. The only reason why you're seeing it this setup is because for our obstacles, we needed the soft spring to be able to get pushed over the certain areas. If you've seen any, like the plank and that kind of stuff, you would see why we needed to have the soft in front and stiff in the rear. But normally, like on rock crawling, more than likely you would actually have it reversed, or just have it all even. So you got here, this is a hard spring or a stiff spring. You can see it's a little bit, and then you have the soft spring here. It's kind of hard to show you because they're kind of small. and you can see how this can condense further than the silver one there. It also doesn't reshape as fast as the harder one. So just something that you need to consider with your shock. And then after that, it'd be just to be able to fine tune its adjustability and get it over the certain obstacles that you're trying to get it over, because there's different ways. Now, when you're climbing over a rock, and there's a couple things you want, what you're not going to get, what the shock oil would give you, is the ability to drop down a hole slowly, and then ability to rise slowly. What the spring will do, it's gonna, hard spring is obviously gonna throw you down, and then it's gotta push itself back up, which can lift the car kind of high. So that's why you got to kind of think about what kind of surfaces, the habitat you want, and based on the spring and shock tension that you're going to want on it. Because obviously, if it's real fine-tuned crawling, a stiff shock could actually work against you, but also could work for you. And based on your placement, it's basically how you're going to put it on, and the habitat and the thing that you're crawling on. So you kind of have to fine tune that on your own, based on overall weight and the things you've done with your vehicle. So generally, if you're going really heavy, you're probably going to use a stiffer shock, because it's going to play into the heaviness. It's going to react the way it's supposed to, and you're going to get kind of a smooth transition over rocks and then going up surfaces. If your car is very, very light and you're not really putting a lot of heavy stuff in it, you can probably stick with the softer springs. But so yeah, there's a lot of going into just the shocks alone and just the springs. So that's the things you want to consider with the shocks. But we do recommend upgrading the shocks, because we for that fine tunability, but it's not something you have to do. If you're not looking to fine tune it, you're just going to go just based off your springs, then you can stay with the stock, and you just won't have the fine tune adjustability. But we do recommend having the options to place, like we've discussed before. So the next thing would be the front steering link. So with the front steering link, we're going to actually go ahead and raise this up well, that's pretty low. We actually dismantled part of this because we're still working on this vehicle, as you can see. But in this, what we have now is the Treal CNC aluminum metal steering link. We do recommend the metal steering links. You can get like the Shapeway. Shapeway is pretty good. It's plastic, but I do put a pretty good surface on it that makes it pretty durable. We've never broken any of their stuff, so we do recommend theirs as well. The only difference you're going to have is that the Shapeways kind of move a little bit. There's a little bit of freedom where you're not going to have any of that movement with the metal. And what that does, it gives you, for one, it's more strength and durability. Two, your steering is going to be a lot smoother. The whole front end is going to be a lot smoother, because if you notice with your stock, your steering arm here, actually when it's placed or when it's installed, it actually kind of moves. You can move it around. You're not going to get that with this. It's going to be pretty stiff, but it doesn't take or hinder any of it. It just makes everything stronger, kind of puts everything together. And then if you do decide to go with those knuckles, which we're not going into this one, the overall knuckles combination with everything, it's kind of the glue that holds the whole front end and the steering ability together. So we do recommend doing a front metal steering link. Our second option would be the Shapeways, or some kind of upgraded, more of a heavy duty front end to kind of get rid of that loose, because what happens is that it takes that split millisecond of a turn away from you. You actually have to engage the system first before that bar actually moves it. When you install this or metal or upgraded version, you aren't going to have that. It's as soon as you turn, it turns. That's why we recommend that. The last area, and we're actually going to go ahead and zoom. We're going to change the camera here a little bit, but let's see here. Go ahead and move a little this way. So the last thing we're going to talk about with this video in episode 3 is the links. I'm going to remove these springs here. Oh, hard to see. I don't want to lose them. All right, so we're going to talk about with this one. Flip this car over. I'm actually going to go ahead and tilt it right here. That's not the best presentation, but it'll do. So basically what we want to discuss, and the reason why we're going to talk about the links, and what we're talking about is the upper and lower links. Let's see if we can get some light on it. It's going to be a little bright, but I want you guys to be able to see a little bit lower. Oh, okay, this will have to do. So with the links, the reason why we recommend links, if you've already done the links, you already know this answer. It is another kind of like the whole steering link thing in the front. It is going to make everything work and operate in a way smoother, more of a stiffer fashion. Means when you go to crawl over items, it's going to move and react way more of that scale kind of feeling. The also with, again, it's got that stiffness, so it doesn't have any of the loose plastic kind of hardware, so nothing's going to move. Not only that, but it overall gives you another area. It's not a lot of weight, but it will kind of spread out all that weight very low. It's another very low point, even with the higher areas here. Another thing, especially if you're doing it with the Betty, we recommend upgrading the links, period, because of people having issues with the Y link you see up here. And it's kind of hard with the way, kind of grainy lighting. But there's a notch that either it's just not placed right or there's been some rubbing. So it'd be another way to avoid all that. The other option about links too is you have high clearance links. You have you can go even low. You can spread your links out. There's all sorts of different options on how you want to put your links. Your links kind of overall control where everything is going to sit in your car, your stance, your height, everything. So it's just something that we do recommend because of the pros. You're not really going to have any cons besides if certain links, depending on their surface, can cause you to hang up on rocks. So be careful on, know your linkage surfaces. You don't want something super grainy because it's just going to grab everything. If you go straight soft aluminum, that does take a lot of damage and gouges, and over time you would probably have to replace that. So links are definitely something we strongly recommend. And yeah, so that's really the three main items for this video that we're going to discuss. We don't really have to show too many driving because we've done that. So if you want to check out some of the driving then after we've actually installed these particular parts, you can go back and through our older videos. We don't really post the links on our videos because a lot of the times our filming is away from our computer sources. So we do our editing on the go. So that's why you don't see all those links. We apologize for that. That will change over time. Eventually eventually you'll get flooded with all this kind of links and, hey, click here and click here and click here, you'll go here. We'll eventually have all that. We've tested the waters. So episode 4, the next one, we have a few more areas that we're going to talk about, and then we're going to go into certain kind of mods that you can do, maybe upgrading and completely changing the way you do your motors, all that kind of stuff. But we're still talking about the upgrades. So if you want to know, at the end of this, we will, like we said, we're going to show a bunch of cars and that kind of stuff. We're also going to go through the top 5, or like the top of all the pros and then all the cons, basically the top 5 to top 10 parts that we've already gone through. So for instance, we've talked about shocks with Treal. What are the better ones between Treal, Hot Racing, Yeah Racing, and all the other brands? There's so many brands. We're going to compare all those because we have used majority of all of them. So that will be kind of towards the end of this whole series. But again, if you're a 24 fan and you're doing your 110s and you're going to these events and you don't see that they have a 24 scale event or competition, bring it up. That's what we're trying to do. That's the goal here. Is we want to make these things popular. And if if you have them, you already know why they should be popular. So let's get these popular out there. Let's get these things in events, and we're gonna hashtag we're just going to hashtag the snot out of this thing. We're going to make this thing, make these 24s, all the 124s, noticed. So that's the goal. All right. So thanks for watching. Stay tuned for episode 4. We'll go into more of the fine details of the 24. Remember, this car is over a year in advance from where it started, the yellow Jeep, to where it's at now. So we're just kind of fine tuning and trying to find ways to make sure that you can save money. All right. Thanks for watching. Bye.